The dash is completed. Now it's time to actually clean it up and loom all the wires into some semblance of order. So I'm going to use just fabric tape initially, and then I'll bind them together into multiple bundles and zip tie them. So that's what I'm going to do now. Okay, progress report. I've loomed everything around the tacho and speedo and the ignition switch. Now this will be all bundled together, so it will be a lot tighter than it is at the moment. I've also started on the instruments here, the fuel gauge, water and oil pressure gauge. So they will be done next, and then I get to the body of what I can do with the switches here. Okay, I've got this more or less loomed up. It's not perfect, there's still some bits I'd like to do, but I think until everything is working properly, I will leave it as it is. This is fog light relay, obviously is just stuck on. What needs to happen is that all the instruments need to be removed. There needs to be a dash cover put on the front, a carbon fibre look vinyl, and the back needs to be cleaned up, and then we can put it in the car for good. Now let's have a look at what I've done with the ECU table. So here we have the ECU panel. We can see that it is a bit tidy. We've got the connectors separate. We've got the ECU in place. We've got the fuse box nicely installed. So next will be just to get these wires on top of one another and clean up this mess under here. But I think we're getting there. I've got a lot more of the wiring done. I've loomed quite a bit of it. I've got it all complete. I just got the reverse motor running, so I want to show you that. I believe I've shown this to you before. So I'll turn the enable on, and then we'll just... Okay, and that's how it works. It makes a lot of noise, and it only goes at one speed, but it does move the car backwards. So that's great. Now let's go to the front of the car and see what we've done there. So a couple of things. First of all, I learned that this bar here is really for the aim dash and not for the dash that I've got with the individual instruments. As a result, I thought the dash was sitting a lot more forward than what it needs to sit at. So I was told by MK that this just needs to be chopped off, and then I can mount this dash, the surface underneath the rail here, and that will give me that extra room that I need to move the dash back or towards the front of the car, but also further down, and then it should fit under the scuttle. Let's go around here. I've got the instruments, the sensors wired up. You can see here, you can see over there. I've got the front loom wired up for the lights and indicators, and around here I've got the harness under here. This is all going to go into conduit just to keep it safe. As you can tell, I'm in the process of filling the car up with oil, the engine up with oil. I've got the battery mounted and connected. So we're getting pretty close to seeing whether this thing actually starts. And my plan of action is to get all the fluids in the car, make sure that it's in neutral, which I know it is now because I could use the reverse and the engine wasn't preventing that from happening. And then plug in the diagnostic tool into the ECU and see what that thinks is happening. So they're my next steps. I didn't have any luck getting the ECU to talk to my dongle on the computer. I think the ECU isn't powered up. But I put, as I said, I put oil into the engine, and what I want to do now is just run the engine on the starter. Now, what I need to do is, first of all, just bridge the clutch switch. I haven't put clutch fluid in the system yet, so the clutch pedal doesn't work. So I'll just bridge the switch. I'll just show you what I've done there. So you can see the Deutsch connector here. I've just put a loop there that effectively just fools the system into thinking that the clutch is being pressed. So what I'm going to do now is just crank the engine over until I get oil pressure. Okay, let's see if I've got things wired up. Let's see if I've got the things wired up correctly. So let's turn the ignition on, and we can see that we've got the oil warning light, and also the handbrake is on. No brake fluid, and we see that the handbrake is on. So we're looking at this gauge here. So let's see if we can crank the engine. Nothing yet. Okay, I'm just going to crack the pipe going up to the oil pressure sensor. It's probably full of air, so let's see if I can crank the engine and get oil up there. Okay, so I've taken off the oil pressure switch, and now I'm going to crank the engine again and see if there's any oil coming out of the fitting. Okay, after much starting, I've got oil coming up to the sensors. So we're getting oil being circulated around the engine. I'll just attach these sensors and just see if the pressure gauges work. Okay, here we have the oil light and the brake light on. Let's just crank the engine and see if the oil light goes out. And it goes out. Okay, and the oil pressure goes up slightly. We're just cranking it, so I think that's fine. Okay, we have oil pressure. I found out that I wasn't powering up the ECU. I've put in my Hilltech diagnostic port. Let's turn the ignition on and let's see if we see anything. Okay, let's connect to the ECU. Okay, we get a couple of codes that I need to check. The O2 sensor heater circuit doesn't seem to be working, and the intake air temperature circuit doesn't seem to be working. So let's go to the engine. Yay, look at that. I see all the sensor positions. It looks like things look reasonable. The coolant temperature, air intake temperature is all looking about right. The manifold pressure is fine, the atmospheric pressure is about fine. The battery voltage isn't showing the right voltage. We're seeing that we've got 5 volts on the O2 sensor. Okay, it looks like we've got the ECU running. Next steps are to put some fuel into the fuel tank, connect up the fuel pump and sender, and let's see if we can start. But that's for next episode. So this is a major achievement.